Hello everyone, today's video is going to be my favorite video to film each month. That is pretty much a roundup of all the palettes I used and all the looks that I've done in the past month. Last month I did not share a whole lot of stats because I neglected to tell you guys the stats. I'm not going to forget this time. In the month of August, I wore makeup 23 days, which is less than what I usually do because in August we took a week off. Me and my fiance, we did like house stuff, little trips, things like that. And I pretty much didn't wear makeup for a whole week. I also got 3 new palettes. So those 3 new palettes are going to be at the very top of the list. And actually, I have tried in August to hit a lot of those palettes that only had like 1 use left for my No Pan Left Behind. So we're gonna see a lot of these palettes. The only reason why they got use is so I can get my No Pan Left Behind goal. Next year, I don't really think I will do a No Pan Left Behind, just because it alters what I would normally wear. Like, I would not have worn some of these eyeshadow palettes or some of these colors if it wasn't for No Pan Left Behind. So I usually do these from least used to most used for the most part. I am going to start with the 9 different palettes that I've only used once. I am going to start with my Urban Decay Naked Reloaded. This is the one I have most recently delved into, and I did do a look with this palette very recently. It was my most recent Throwback Thursday. I will leave that link down below. I am not going to be showing you guys the look that I did, only because it is the look that I did in that video. It was a Get Ready With Me Throwback Thursday. I did talk about my thoughts on the original Naked palette that they just re-released. That look with this palette is in that video. Overall, the palette's fine. I'm going to move over here so I can input pictures of my looks on this side. Next palette that I only got 1 use out of was my Lorac Fairy Tale Forest palette. In the last couple years, this has been a top dog in my monthly roundups, and I would at least use this like at least once. This has not gotten as much use this year as it has previously. In August, we went to a wedding and I did something extremely basic with this. I think I really only have 1 more use until I can do my No Pan Left Behind. I only used like 3 shades. I do not remember the shades I used, but it's a super simple look for a wedding. This is a go-to type of palette for those occasions. This is one of my newer palettes, my Juvia's Place Culture. It is a big one. And I did a blue look. Did I do like a pink lower lash line? Yeah, I did a blue look with a pink lower lash line, and I used some of these blues and I used the pinks. This is a beautiful palette. I love this palette, and I cannot wait for me. I feel the most creative with my eyeshadow when I haven't used the palette at all and I literally have free reign on whatever I want. If I want something more randomized and more along those lines, I would do a palette bingo, but this is a beautiful palette and I really enjoy the blue shade that I had on. I think I had this shade all over the lid. This one threw some people for a loop. It is a fall toned look. It's a very warm, very simple look for the fall time. And I used my Huda Rose Quartz palette. This is a beautiful palette. I love this palette. I used it once. I did hit pan in that putty-like shade. One of the shades that No Pan Left Behind. I used that in the inner corner as a base, and then I used my Becca Moonstone highlighter in the inner corner. This is what I used to create that warm look. I used like these 2 shades, that brown. I used that like taupey color. Overall, this palette is gorgeous. It was really unique to get something of that color story out of this palette. You can do a lot with this palette. I also brought out my Huda Mercury Retrograde. So I brought out the 2 big ones this past month. They only had a couple shades left for No Pay Left Behind, and this one I completed that. I used it along with another palette, which I will show later. But this is the color story. This used to be an all-time favorite palette for me, and it honestly has fell down on the totem pole pretty far. It's not my favorite palette anymore, but it has been my favorite palette for a long time. The quality and the color story is really good. I definitely used this purple shade. What is that called? Ultraviolet. But yeah, this I did in conjunction with another palette to kind of help that palette out a little bit. I really love this palette, need to use it more. Another big palette is the Glamlight Michaela palette. This one, I did not complete my No Pay Left Behind, but I'm on my way there. This is the color story. It is super pretty. I did a blue look. I don't know if you guys have noticed in a good chunk of my looks, if my shirt is of a color, I try and match that color on my eyes. I do more either neutral looks or, you know, just a random color when I just have like a black shirt on, like I did today. I used the Natasha Denona My Dream palette today, but I had a very bright royal blue shirt on, so that meant I used these 3 shades in the palette. And I love the Glamlight formula. I really enjoy the color story of the Michaela palette. This is another one of those palettes that I would use a lot more often if I wasn't focusing on, you know, doing different colors, doing different palettes. I pulled out some of my ColourPop palettes this month. This little guy is my Lost in Wonderland. I only had a couple more shades left, and it was a very light pink look. I forced myself to use this chunky pink glittery shade. I used it in like my outer corner where they have the darkness, but then I just blended it out with Talking Flowers, that pink matte anyway, or at least it looks like I did. I do not enjoy that shade, but I needed to use it for my No Pay Left Behind. This is, of course, one of those palettes I used for No Pay Left Behind. I really enjoy this cute little palette. Desperately need to use it more. I'm okay with the other like glittery shade, which is this white one. This is a glittery shade. This is fine because I can put it in the inner corner. I can put it like all over the lid. I struggle doing something this dark all over the lid. My last ColourPop palette, this may have been my favorite look I have done all month. It was using my ColourPop All Amethyst palette. It was just a soft, more like ethereal purple look. I really enjoyed the tones in here. I love the color story. I'm looking at my photo right now. It is just so soft and so pretty, and I remember getting compliments on this at work. I've mentioned it many times before, every single look you practically see I have worn to work. It doesn't stop me whatsoever. This is just a beautiful palette, and hopefully if I do my No Pay Left Behind pretty well, I can bring this back out for fall and use some of these shades more than just once this year. Another No Pay Left Behind situation, ABH Norvina. This one has been a love of mine forever, for a very long time. Again, it's one of those palettes that used to be my all-time favorite palette. Sometimes, if it's just me, but like right now, I have a good large collection of eyeshadow palettes. I have like 60 eyeshadow palettes or something along those lines. I felt that I had more of a connection to certain palettes when I had significantly less of them. Like I remember when I only had like 15 to 20 eyeshadow palettes, which I couldn't even fathom. There's too many color stories and too many like formulas and palettes I just love and adore to have that little anymore. But when I had significantly less eyeshadow, this was my ride or die. And I do have some pans in here. I did like a warm pink look. I don't remember what I put all over the lid. And do know I used a lot of the warm shades. I used that pink matte called Love. It was a like nice warm pink look. And you guys all really enjoyed that. On Instagram, I love and appreciate all of your love and support on Instagram, but this one is No Pin Left Behind, and it was used once in the month of August. This was to hit my No Pan Left Behind for a project. This was in my Deck of Panning project. My project pan playlist is always linked down below, but my Naked Robin Eisenberg palette was in that project, and I wanted to use it No Pan Left Behind. Again, I used this one twice. We're now out of the one use category. This palette I used twice. The first look I actually did with the Huda Mercury Retrograde palette. I used these blues, and let me tell you, Huda Mercury Retrograde saved this in terms of the blues. But the look that I'm showing you right now is, again, a very, very, very simple, basic look. I stayed over here. It was super simple, super easy. It's a very natural look. I don't know how else to describe it. I could have done that look with a lot of different palettes, though. So, No Pan Left Behind is complete with that one. This past month, I did get my Sydney Grace mystery bags. I did get a few single eyeshadows. I have these AOA Pro Z palettes, and then this was my Christmas and July sticker this year. Christmas and July sales always at the end of July, so of course you get your products in August. And these are the shades that I got in each of all my mystery bags. So I call this my Sydney Grace Singles Part 2. I do have a whole Z palette this size filled with Sydney Grace shadows, and this is my Part 2. So that's how I'm keeping them separated, and that's how I'm doing my No Pin Left Behind. Out of this palette and this palette alone, I got two different looks. The first one, I stayed primarily in these really warm shades. I did it was like a dark, not dark, it was like a nice sultry red outer corner with the gold all over the lid. It was a very nice, fiery, warmth type of look. I really enjoyed that look out of this. And then I also did a green look. This is my favorite shade that we got in the mystery bags this past season. And I did not use a single green matte. I used this yellow matte and this blue matte, and blended together they made green. I just loved the way this palette looked, and the light shimmer shade was actually a single shadow. I don't feature those in these videos. I loved that look. I would 110% do it again. And then the third look, which did I forget to tell you, I used this bad boy 3 times. The last look I did was like a sultry green look, which I believe I used this shade or this shade. I don't remember the shades I used, but it was a nice sultry green look. I loved that green look the most. And I can't wait for next year. I can do like a build your own palette. I can do videos on that. Would love to do that. I just don't want to move them around if I have to keep track of No Pin Left Behind. Okay, probably my favorite palette this month. This is the one I have been anticipating for. I bought this during pre-order. It was my Simply Posh Coastal palette. This is my first time ever trying Simply Posh, and the packaging is gorgeous. The formulas are so delicious. Delicious is the best way I can put it. I really love this palette. But I got this during pre-order. I waited a couple months for it to come, and since it finally came, I used this 4 times. I want to show you guys all the looks that I did with this. I did a nice peach and blue look. Honestly, you can't get any more summer than that. This was really the tail end of summer palette for me. These sparkles are everything. This look, I used these, like, I don't know what to call this shade. It's not like a tan, but then I also used like one of these greens and whatever, using that side of the palette, which was so interesting. And I had a tan shirt on. I'm telling you, it went so well together. It's such a unique shade. That one in the corner called Shell. It's such a unique shade. I don't know how to explain it, but it matched my shirt so incredibly well. And that's one of those things, I try and match my shirt whenever possible. Next one, there's that blue shirt again. I do really like that color blue on me. I have a couple shirts that shade of blue. I used, actually, that pop of blue is an eyeliner, Turquoise Storm from NYX. But I just used some of those pink shades in the palette and made a really pretty look. And I used Turquoise Storm eyeliner on the front, like, you know, probably the first 2/3, 3/4 of the lid, and then used a liquid eyeliner to do the little wing at the end. Probably my favorite look that I made with this palette was my first time using this palette, which I used these like blues in the center. They are just stunning and beautiful. I just don't know how to explain my love for Simply Posh. This palette is divine. I love it so much. Can you see in this look the dimension? And I don't know if you could tell in the picture, but I used salt water, which I don't know. Can you tell? It looks purple, and then it turns like blue, and it's purple. It's this one right here. So it's like green and purple. It's just unbelievable. I don't know how they do these, but I have that in the outer lid, and it just made a nice shift when I would turn my head. Delicious. I loved it so much. There are so many amazing indie palettes that I have bought and I have tried this year that my ranking my 2024 palettes is gonna be so difficult. Between this and the Diver Room Gloomy Gardens, they're like neck and neck, man. Best purchase probably this year versus that Gloomy Gardens palette. And then I only have one more palette to show you guys, and of course that's my Blend Bunny Dollhouse palette. I used this one 6 times, which I got this one probably at the very tail end of July, because I used this on the first day of August and it wasn't on my spreadsheet. So that means like I probably got it like the last day or 2 of July, but I'm just counting it as an August palette. But anyway, I did do a 3 looks 1 palette video with this palette. I did 6 looks in total this month with it. I'm only going to show you guys 3 because I want you to get a look at that video. Some nice looks in that video. The first look I did that I'm going to show you guys is this sultry blue look. You guys know I love blue. I love blue. I love pink. That's a train. I love green eyeshadow. I love any color. I really love color, but this is a nice sultry blue. I really wanted to use this blue shade, which in my opinion feels a little out of the palette. Like it doesn't really go with the rest of the palette. To me, it's just like an oddball out, but it looks beautiful with those other shades. I did a really sultry, pinky type of look. Super simple, super easy. I did this fiery, or I called it a smoky peach. Whatever. It's bright, and I mean bright as in like intense. We have such contrast in the outer corner and then that peachy lid color all over. I really enjoyed that look. And those are the 3 looks I apparently am going to show you guys. I'm like, I did so much more than that. I did, because they're in that video. Love, adore this palette. This is a good workhorse staple palette. If I didn't have much in my collection, this would be probably a palette that I would use on a daily basis. It is a palette I could use on a daily basis. I just love and adore this palette. This past month, amazing palette choices. I am so proud of myself that I used palette 6 times. That's amazing to me. I did a lot of looks with palettes that were on the tail end of No Pain Left Behind, so I can get them crossed out. So at the end of September, I can do a really nice update, because I did not do a nice update in, was that June or July? Final wrap-ups. Wore makeup 23 days out of the month. I have 3 new eyeshadow palettes, which was the Blend Bunny Dollhouse, the Coastal palette from Simply Posh, and those Sydney Grace singles that I count as a palette altogether. I used 13 different eyeshadow palettes. If you guys enjoy these videos, please go down below and check out the playlist of my palette roundups. If you enjoy project painting content, which I kind of consider this a little bit, not really, but I'll leave my project painting playlist also down below. I will leave any and all videos I have mentioned down below. Anything I else want to throw down there, you can go right at it and have at it. I love and appreciate all of you guys. Go check out my Instagram. You guys give me so much support over there as well. And I show my daily eye looks. I show daily eye looks, and I show you the shades that I use. You guys can use that as inspiration if you so want. If you also have these palettes, I love and appreciate all of you guys, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Bye.